afternoon in 2012, seated beside me on a bench in Manchester, my 12-year-old son turned and asked me a question that would change my life. "Mommy, why did you abandon me?" I searched for an answer, but I couldn't find one. Where could I possibly begin? What does he remember? As a victim of human trafficking, I carried deep shame and humiliation. I had so many painful memories I wanted to bury in my heart. But today, I stand before you as an anti-human trafficking activist, a voice for the countless North Korean women you will never meet. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights says, all human beings are born free and equal, the right to live, liberty, and security. Except in North Korea. North Koreans are stripped away of their individuality the moment they are born. They are raised not as citizens, but as a tool of the regime. As a child, no one ever asked me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" We didn't dream of being doctors or teachers or politicians. We didn't dream at all. At childhood, we played war games, North Korea versus the Yankees. North Korea always won. Twice a month, on the 4th and the 19th, my mother would go collect our food rations, and everyone's house are different dates. When there wasn't enough, the state had a simple explanation: American problems. We saw dead bodies in the streets, neighbors, children, people we knew. But no one called it starvation. It was just an illness. We didn't protest. We didn't ask questions. We didn't think. Because from birth, we had been trained not to. We are all modern-day slavery and only propaganda tools. In 1996, my uncle, who told us bedtime stories and made us laugh, died of starvation right in front of me. In the moments after his death, rice jumped from his body. He no longer looked human, just the skin and the bones. It was the moment I began to question everything. This period, the massive starvation killed more than 3 million people, and this starvation still ongoing. Many North Koreans decided to risk escape. I was one of them. In 1998, I left my sick father behind and promised to protect my younger brother. My father, too weak, took homes with us, begged us to go. I knew it would be the last time I saw him. But when I crossed the border, I learned the truth. China was not greener. I had been trafficked and sold to Chinese men for 5,000 yuan. My brother was arrested and sent back to North Korea. I still don't know if he's dead or alive. For the next 6 years, I lived as a sex slave in northeast China. It is as tragic as it is common. 80% of North Korean women who escaped are trafficked, sold to Chinese men for labor and sex exploitation. I gave birth to my son alone in a bedroom. It was terrifying. But for the first time, I had something I had desperately missed: family. The Declaration of the Rights of the Child says every child is entitled to a nationality. But I had no passport, no ID, no birth certificate, and neither did my son. Without the documents, you cannot live, work, or even open a bank account. You don't legally exist. And China still refused to recognize the 20,000 stateless children born to North Korean mothers. This stems from a 1986 agreement with North Korea treating escapees as economic migrants rather than refugees fleeing persecutions. This policy leaves women like me vulnerable to traffickers who exploited women like me vulnerable to traffickers who exploited our lack of legal system. My son, born without a birth certificate, was invisible to the world, a ghost in a system that refused to see him. Then, when my son was 5, my worst nightmare came true. The Chinese authorities found me, arrested me, and deported me back to North Korea. I was imprisoned, tortured, and re-educated. For 6 months, I plowed the field with my bare hands and thought only one thing: how do I get back to my son? I realized what worked once might work again. So I agreed knowingly to be trafficked again. I sold myself to save my son. When I crossed the border, I found a phone and called it. I heard a small voice on the other end. Mom. These single words shattered me. It was the sound of hope after years of despair. I had crossed the borders, endured torture, and sold my freedom to hear it. In that moment, I wasn't a refugee or a victim. I was a mother, reunited with my only family I had left. Today, I live in the UK with my husband and 3 children. There is growing interest in North Korean refugees, but we cannot forget the people still left behind. And now, North Korean soldiers are being sent to foreign battlefield not as volunteers, but as modern-day slaves. They are forced to fight wars that are not their own, with no choice, no freedom, and no way out. The International Labour Organizations estimated that 25 million people worldwide are trapped in forced labor, including North Korean workers sent to countries like Russia and China. These modern slaves generated billions for the regime, funding its nuclear ambitions while its people starve. This is no longer just a North Korean issue. This is a global human rights crisis. Human beings are being trafficked, imprisoned, and exploited across borders and in plain sight. The North Korean regime trapped 25 million people in a prison of lies. Its downfall won't come from missiles, but from truth. This is an information war. Ignore the tourist illusions and the propaganda puppets. Listen to the survivors. Their stories expect what the regime fears most. In our time, truth is the most powerful weapon. It takes courage to seek it and resolve to share it. Every truth spoken strikes as tyranny. The regime's greatest fear is a world that knows and acts. In 1998, I made the decision to escape. At that moment, I could no longer ignore the brutal reality of life under the North Korean regime. But what I faced in China was even more horrific than anything I had endured in North Korea. I came to understand that the North Korean regime treated its people not as individuals, but as mere resources. There is no fear of losing a family, no fear of losing life. The regime's only goal is to maintain its power at all costs. In North Korea, there is no concept of freedom or human dignity. To escape that system, I had to endure the unimaginable suffering. The regime fears the outside world and goes to any length to keep its citizens isolated, suppressing every voice and every story from escaping. The cruelty of the regime is beyond what most can fathom. Some people still see refugees as weak, as victims. But that is not true. Refugees are not weak people who left their country. They are strong people who refused to give up their freedom. We are not a burden to society. We are survivors. We are fighters. To escape that system, I had to endure it. I speak to you now, not just as Ji-hyun Park, but as the voice of 25 million North Koreans who remain silent. The men, women, and the children who are tortured, imprisoned, starved, or killed. There is no such thing as a good life in North Korea. Children are born in darkness and grew up in chains. International leaders cannot continue to let North Korea be the exception to every rule. Tyranny survives in silence, and the silence is a choice. North Koreans deserve the right to live freely without the fear of torture or persecution in any country they choose to live in. My voice alone cannot break the silence, but yours can join mine. Every voice matters. Yours can save lives. As Nelson Mandela said, to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. Let us honor that freedoms by fighting for those still in chains. Thank you.